This video is powered by, as always, entertainment. If you enjoyed this content, consider becoming a patron over on patreon.com/asalways for access to the Patreon exclusive podcast, The Kill Connor Clubhouse, early access to the Cinema Room podcast, being part of polls for future videos, and other early access material. With that said, please enjoy the video. Assassin's Creed 3 Remastered launched last Friday as either a standalone game you can purchase or free for people who bought the Assassin's Creed Odyssey Gold Edition or Season Pass, and I can't imagine anyone did that. Fuck. And so a lot of the Assassin's Creed community were waiting for it with bated breath to see either their favourite game overhauled with visuals, or maybe the game they were incredibly disappointed with at launch given a new look of paint and some improvements. Assassin's Creed 3 Remastered does some things, and we're going to go over those things in this video and talk about what works well and what doesn't work well, and is this a good remaster or should you skip it? Obviously you all know already my thoughts on the original Assassin's Creed 3, and if you don't, it's not relevant anyways, because we're going to be judging this one solely on its credit as a remaster and not on the narrative flaws that the game may have, because that's not important to this review. So without further ado, let's go ahead and begin. Oh, quick disclaimer, I won't be covering the Liberation remaster, which is included in the Assassin's Creed 3 Remastered game. I just don't really care enough about it to bother playing it again for this review, and let's be honest, nobody is buying this remaster for Liberation. It's just a nice addition if you did purchase the game, because everyone is buying this for the main article being Assassin's Creed 3. Anyway, if you like that, then a like will be super appreciated, and let's go. What the fuck am I doing, man? Before we start, I want to thank our Patreon producers, King Richard III, Ikraik, Seth, and Josh Devillier. Thank you for your continued support. First things first, let's talk about the general visual improvements that this game has. For starters, the textures have been mostly overhauled in a ton of areas of the game. Bricks on buildings look more detailed, the bark on trees have more depth, and the streets have changed from a general sort of blurred mud texture to now have interesting rocky patterns and cobbled streets. When you see the light reflecting off of it or the shadows hitting it just right, it looks really nice, and I think the updated textures are a much needed addition to a game that originally looked very blurry to me. On top of this, we have the changing of the clothes textures. Now, in cutscenes they can look a little bit janky, but when playing the actual game, the distance from the camera to Connor allows for the robes to look magnificent, and I really love the way they look more detailed, with creases and dirt specks as you move around. It helps to update this game and bring it into 2019. Next up is one of the biggest graphical changes, which is the lighting. Assassin's Creed 3 originally looked incredibly brown and grey, and that only added to the depressing feeling of walking around the open world of colonial America. In the remaster, however, they've completely overhauled the lighting system, with the sun actually feeling strong and intense, light shafts glaring over the city streets and reflecting off the pavement. This, along with the additional fog, helps the cities in the game to have so much more life and atmosphere than they previously did in the original Assassin's Creed 3. In some areas, however, the game can still look very brown and washed out, but it doesn't happen very often. On top of this, sometimes we can get the polar opposite, where things get overpoweringly orange, and sometimes you'll find orange just emitting from random places, even though there's no light source. But with that said, when the orange does work, it works incredibly well, and it helps make Assassin's Creed 3 feel alive rather than the dead feeling you get when playing the original brown, muddy game. There's also the nice addition of some ambient occlusion within buildings, and I think this just makes the world feel brighter and more realistic than previously. A small addition, but welcome nonetheless. On top of this, there are also increases in the amount of foliage around, just giving that extra boost of immersion when exploring the frontier. Now, in Assassin's Creed 3 Remastered, they supposedly overhauled the character models, namely the faces, saying this allowed for them to appear much more emotive. Now, I don't know about you, but there's some clear issues here. I'm not entirely sure what went wrong, but the faces have lost a lot of the quality that I think they had in the original game, to the point where sometimes, other than the 4K resolution, they're looking like they were ripped right out of the PlayStation 2 era. They seem to have lost all shading, any shadows, and the textures just look flat and smooth instead of resembling actual facial complexion. It's honestly the strangest thing ever, and I don't know why they allowed this to happen. Oh fuck, what is that? Who are you guys? Jesus Christ.
Death to the oppressor! Cut them down!
What's this? Slavery? Not in my fucking town. You're free! You're free now! Go and... run away! I've saved you, okay, they're effective. But with regards to the faces, I'm not sure there's much else to be said. While I'm on the topic of cutscenes not seeming to have as much detail and fidelity as the original game, I've noticed as well the lighting in some places looks very off, especially indoor scenes. And combine this with the faces and the clothing textures, honestly, it looks like a big fat downgrade in my eyes. Mate, I think that one on your desk. Overall, general gameplay in the world looks a ton better, even if the cutscenes, in my opinion, look a lot fucking worse than the original. Maybe this is something they can eventually patch down the line, but as of now, it looks real bad in that regard. But I don't think it takes away from the fact that playing the game itself, as you traverse the environment, is far, far more immersive and interesting than the original game. So the next big change is in with regards to the HUD and the UI. For a start, they've altered the HUD in the remaster so that it actually looks like a finished HUD. Assassin's Creed 3 always felt like they were using a prototype HUD that wasn't yet finished, and it was super ugly and unhelpful. They've, however, in the remaster entirely overhauled the HUD and made it so it's way more helpful for the player. For starters, buttons which used to only show 2, which were condensed to the bottom right, have now been increased to the classic Assassin's Creed 4 button display and been moved to the top right hand corner, similarly to Assassin's Creed 1 to Revelations and Assassin's Creed 4 to Syndicate, which makes things a lot easier when pressing buttons. A quick glance will display which options are currently available to you. On the top of that, the map has been totally changed to actually show the location a lot better, as well as the enemy icons being far more clear as to where they are, which direction they're facing, and which are on roofs and which aren't. A greatly needed addition. There are also some other changes to the map, but we'll get onto that in a moment. Next, I wanted to go over the weapon wheel. They've updated that so it now doesn't take 3.5 years to open, so that you can quickly open the weapon wheel, quickly select your weapon and get right back to combat without having to worry about load times, which could fuck you over in the middle of combat. It also now still allows you to see the world whilst you're in the weapon wheel and the situation you're in, so you'll never lose sight of your current task. It also gives you the weapon stats within the weapon wheel, which is a nice addition. Back to the map now, icons have been updated. Main quests now show with a yellow color, helping them to stand out so you can determine which quests are most important and which are merely side activities, along with shops also now having a yellow ring to display when there are new items available to be purchased. Along with this, viewpoints have been altered slightly to allow for better judgment from the player. Before you've completed a viewpoint, it will show an eagle with closed wings, and after synchronizing, the wings will be open to signify you've completed that objective. Small, yet helpful. Oh, fuck. Next section is the gameplay changes within this remaster. If you watched the Assassin's Creed Odyssey March update, you'll know they talked a little bit about some minor and major changes they made to how the game actually works, but how deep are these changes? First up is the great addition of being able to low profile double assassinate. Originally in Assassin's Creed 3 you couldn't double assassinate in low profile, it had to be from high profile, which totally fucks up with stealth. In the remaster, however, you can now double assassinate in low profile, but don't do it in front of guards because that's the opposite of stealth. Next change was the ability to now whistle from any of the hiding spots in the game, which is greatly appreciated and just helps with stealth. Next change was that we can now free aim with bows and muskets, which is super helpful. We no longer have to use the awful aiming system from the original Assassin's Creed 3, and now it works more like Black Flag and Rogue, allowing for a proper aiming system, another much needed change. Along with these minor changes, they also boasted that mission structures would be changed to allow for things to flow a lot more smoothly than they did in the original game. But what did they actually change? Well, what they did change was some good stuff, but it wasn't really much at all. For a start, when you're below decks as Haytham and you have to fight Mills as his mutiny is being carried out, in the original game you could just counter kill him instantly, whereas in this game you have to disarm him or throw him and then use attacks to get his health down and finish him off. And yeah, I mean, this looks way better. In all seriousness, it's a good addition, I guess. It makes things slightly less easy. Secondly, when out hunting with your mate as Connor, a bear comes and chases you. In the original game, you could do a quick time event to kill the bear, but that was removed due to the fact that doing the quick time event would lead to Connor killing the bear with the hidden blade animation, and at which point he hadn't received his hidden blades yet. So in the remaster, you just have to run away. The quick time event just allows you to dodge the bear. But actually I broke it and still killed it with the hidden blade animation, so they clearly didn't try hard enough with that one. And thirdly, when on the ship as Haytham, usually you'd have to return to your journal after the missions to move on to the next section. But in the remaster, you now don't have to. It'll just auto-start the next section, rather than having the slow-paced walk to your cabin and the cutscene of Haytham writing in his journal. So, fine addition, I guess. And that's that. That's all the changes, at least all the changes I noticed. Let me know if there's any that I missed down below in the comments. And finally, we have the legacy outfits. We've got Aguilar, Bayek, Shay, Ezio, Jacob, Edward, Arno, and my personal favorite assassin from the Assassin's Creed franchise, who's definitely an assassin, Alexios. But these outfits are great. Legacy outfits are always nice, and I like them a lot. They're all made clearly with a lot of care, and they're all high quality too. Nice job. All in all, Assassin's Creed 3 Remastered is probably one of the best we've seen from this franchise, overlooking the issue with the faces. Everything else improves the game somewhat, from the visuals to even the gameplay and mission structure. This is the most effort we've seen from Ubisoft going into a remaster, and there's a lot more effort put into this than a lot of other companies do with their remasters as well, so credit where credit is due. Unfortunately, there weren't any major changes which I would have loved to have seen, with things like Connor's cut speech being added and some dialogue scenes being changed to allow for the story to make a lot more sense, but it seems they opted for not doing that, which isn't a huge issue, just because you can't expect them to start remaking whole sections of the game, but at least Connor's speech would have been nice, since it was already in the original game files. To wrap up, I feel like if you played Assassin's Creed 3 back in the day, and you were one of the people that liked the game, then this remaster is definitely for you. You'll have a blast revisiting a game you love, looking tons better, with a few needed gameplay changes. If you're one of the people who didn't like the game at launch, there'll be no need to play this remaster, as they don't change enough that it makes the game feel better for those that disliked it in the first place. And for people who haven't played Assassin's Creed 3 ever and are wondering if this is the time to pick it up, it's really up to you. The game has been brought to the modern era for the most part, and although the issues that were there with the narrative originally are still present, maybe go back and watch some reviews for the original 2012 release, and then decide whether you want to pick up this game in 2019 with a nice new lick of paint. And with that said, I think that's it from me. Personally, I feel the remaster is a good one. Other than the clear issues with the faces, its clear effort was put into improving this game when needed, and making the visuals feel really nice to look at, and I'm pleasantly surprised on that front. The game still suffers from everything that disappointed me in 2012, and so not much more can be said for how this has changed my overall view of the game, but it's definitely a lot more enjoyable to just casually play. And with that, I'm done with this review. Let me know your thoughts on the Assassin's Creed 3 Remaster in the comments, as well as supporting me with a like or subscription if you haven't already. Check out the other content on my channel, as I greatly appreciate it. I try and put as much effort into everything that I put out. And all of my links to social media, etc. are in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.